Hey, Mike, welcome back to the program here. Let me ask you a basic question on this legal action right out of the gate here. Why file a lawsuit instead of simply trying to meet the requirements?
Well, first of all, I'm not the only Texan who has considered running as an independent. And before I launched this campaign, I've talked to a number of folks who have considered it. They all said, Mike, it can't be done. It can't be done. And I thought, well, I can do it. But then when I realized they're right, it can't be done. That tells me that there's a problem with the law. I'm required, believe it or not, to come up with 82,000 signatures. And I have to interact with each person, or my surrogates do, or my volunteers do. And I have 30 days to do it, and it just can't be done. Now you can buy those signatures. You can buy 82,000 signatures, and it costs millions of dollars. But that's not right. That's not American. It's not constitutional. Lots of good people have thought about running for office as an independent and haven't for a good reason. And so that's why I decided to file this suit.
And you say buy the signatures. That means you could hire people to go out and collect these signatures across the state, right?
Yeah, and we do. I have a team that's working now, and you pay by the signature basically. And these are young people,
Sure.
and they know what they're doing. Very little interaction between the gatherer and the signer. There's not much discussion of policy. Basically, they stop them, and if the petition signer likes the gatherer, friendly young man or friendly young woman, then they sign it. And so it really has no bearing on whether or not a person ought to be on the ballot, in my opinion.
What exactly are you asking the federal court to do? What do you want them to rule on?
Well, I mean, I think it's reasonable for candidates who want to be on the ballot to do something to show that they have a modicum of support, which is the terms that the courts use. But it has to be reasonable. It has to be doable. And I don't mind it being a challenge, but it can't be just completely impossible. And Texas has the toughest requirement. It makes no sense. It's 82,000 now. It'll be 100,000 4 years from now because it's based on how many people vote for governor, and it'll be 120,000 votes. And it just makes absolutely no sense. So it has to be something that a candidate can do. Let it be challenging. But the candidate has to be able to do it, and that's the problem.
Well, give us an idea. What are you thinking? I mean, 25,000 signatures. This is a state of 30 million people. People hearing this might think, well, 80,000 signatures isn't a lot in a state this large.
Well, I can tell you that studies have been done in other states that it can be much lower. That there's some states where you can get on the ballot for 10,000 signatures, 5,000 signatures. We'll let the courts decide. I have a point of view as to what I think a fair number is. I'd rather not say it yet because the courts are looking at this. And I have no problems working hard. I have no problems going out there and rounding up signatures. But as a practical matter, you can't ask volunteers to do something that they know cannot be done.
If the court doesn't act before this filing deadline is over, this 30-day period here, can you still qualify for the ballot? Will you still qualify?
No, I mean, it depends on how the courts decide to deal. There's two things that are happening here. One is addressing the law. And I think for future reference and for the state and for reasons that I'm running as an independent, I'd like to see others better than me, smarter than me, running as an independent. I'd like to get the courts to say this is not the right answer. Jason, half the country are independents. There are more independents than there are Republicans. There are more independents than there are Democrats. So we have to solve this problem, and that may not come in time for my particular campaign. I understand that. However, they might say, and for Collier, since I've had 9 million votes cast for me, it's kind of hard to say that I'm a frivolous candidate. They might very well say, okay, we'll give an extension. We'll let you have some more time, a lower number. We'll just see what the courts say. From my perspective, the most important thing is for future reference for the state of politics in the state. We need to have it possible so that strong independent candidates can on the ballot. Presently, they cannot.
You filed this lawsuit last week and no idea, though, when you were going to get on a court docket, though, right?
Well, my attorneys are confident that this will be dealt with in a timely manner. I'm not an attorney, and so I hesitate to say anything about how this legal process will unfold. But I'll tell you that we have the Center for Competitive Democracy and Oliver Hall as the lead plaintiff, pro bono, and he's one of the nation's experts, foremost authorities on this. And then A.O. Sherman, we know him in Texas as Sherman and Sterling, a large powerhouse law firm, both doing this pro bono because they believe that I've got a case and they want to move quickly through this.
Mike, what's interesting about this is it's not just you on this case. There are a number of Republicans who are also saying that it's time to get this changed. This is not right. Did you have trouble recruiting them to this cause?
No. I had no difficulty. You might recall when I ran 4 years ago, I had a number of Republicans endorse me. even though I was a Democrat.
Sure.
And so I felt I wanted to call them. I wanted to inform them of my thinking, see what they thought. They were enthusiastic that I was going to run as an independent. And when we decided to file this suit, I called them up and I said, hey, join me as a co-plaintiff. They see the same thing in Texas politics that I do, which is that the two parties are becoming extreme. An independent who turns up at just the right time will do wonders in terms of moderating Texas politics and getting back to where the parties represent the folks in the middle. So they were very enthusiastic to sign on as co-plaintiffs.
And the reason you're going to court is it's not worth going to the legislature because they're going to protect their own rights, I would presume.
Well, I would presume. I can tell you that, the Constitution doesn't say anything about signatures to get on the ballot, neither the U.S. Constitution nor the state Constitution. This requirement, which is too hard to meet, is a construct of the legislature. I don't think that you can say to the legislature, hey, let's redo this. Yeah. I think the courts have to say this is unconstitutional. I mean, I have a constitutional right to run for office. Jason, you have a constitutional right to have choices and to vote as you see fit. And the legislature has to have a darn good reason to make it impossible, which they've done, and the courts are going to have to weigh in.
Are you still collecting signatures while this lawsuit proceeds?
I am. The due date for signatures is next Thursday, June 25th. And so we're going to round up as many signatures as we can. And importantly, I can talk to the judge. I mean, I'm rounding up signatures myself, and I can talk to the courts from experience and say, this is what it's like. This is what it's like if you try to do it with volunteers. That it's what it's like for me. For example, Jason, probably 2/3 of the people that stopped to talk to me voted in the primary. Well, under the law, if they voted in the primary, they can't sign my petition. That in and of itself, I think, is unconstitutional. And I've had friends and family say, Mike, should I skip the primary so I can sign your petition? I've told them, no, this is a very important primary. You have to vote for Senate, you have to vote for governor, attorney general, U.S. Congress, all down the line. To say to folks, don't participate in democracy until I'm on the ballot, I think I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And about 2/3 of the people that I meet on the street say, I'd like to help you, but I can't. I voted in the primary.
Mike, your lawsuit argues that the Texas system is uniquely burdensome. What do other states do? How does Texas rank compared to them?
Well, Texas is by far the worst, and the folks that I've been talking to have experience with ballot access issues all around the country. It's the large number that you need and the possibility of a very, very short period. I can't round up any signatures. Of course, I'm doing it now, but I had to wait until after the runoff. So that's 30 days. And that in and of itself stands out. So it's the number. It's also, we have to do it on paper. You can't do it online. Other states can do it online. There's so many things about this, if you think about it. In order to take a signature, I or a volunteer have to interact with them personally. You have to read a statement to them. Yeah. You have to write down their information, and then they have to sign it. And then you have to go validate it by looking at the voter rolls to make sure they are who they say they are and they didn't vote in the primary. And then you have to go find a notary. Now, you imagine doing all of that in 30 days. We have to round up a new signature every 15 seconds. The best signature gatherer the very best can only do about 10 an hour. So if you do the math, it just can't be done.
Mike,
unless you buy them. And I'll say this about buying signatures. I could go out conceivably and cut deals with special interests. You send me $5 million, I'll get on the ballot and then I'll pitch for you. But that's exactly what I'm campaigning against, Jason. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I am a reform candidate. Campaign finance reform is one of the things that's very high on my agenda, as is term limits. And I'm not going to start this journey by going out there and doing exactly what I'm campaigning against. Just not going to do it.
Mike, you've told me you voted Republican in the past. You've run as a Democrat for lieutenant governor. Critics will say an independent campaign only siphons votes away from one of the two parties. How do you respond to that? Because that's what we've seen in the past 100 years in this country.
Well, I think there are going to be as many Republicans break away from Dan Patrick and vote for me as there are on the other side of the aisle. I think we've studied this pretty carefully. I mean, as you know, I'm opposed to Dan Patrick as lieutenant governor. And I'm not going to do something here to make it easier for him to get elected. In our polling and what I know from campaigning around the state is there are an awful lot of Republicans who don't want to vote for Dan Patrick. For example, you go into East and West Texas particularly, they're furious about vouchers. And we'll have a lot more to say about that. And there's support coalescing from the superintendents around the state, the ones that have the courage to speak up. And I don't blame those that don't. And so there's going to be votes. And then the other thing too, Jason, is that there's a very, very large number of undecideds at the present time. And in our polling, we see that those undecideds could break in one direction or the other. And that's a big part of the campaign.
You've run as a Democrat before for this office. Now you're running as an independent. If you can get on the ballot and collect these signatures by Thursday here, what are your priorities now if elected? Top two priorities, Mike, what are they?
Top two. Well, from the very beginning, I've been pro public education. If we don't educate our young people and public schools, I mean, that's where the children are. 5.5 million students, 5.3 million of them are in public schools. We've got to get public schools right. And then also property taxes are you'll hear Dan Patrick and others say, well, I brought property taxes down. I brought property taxes down. No, sir. You go look at your tax bill. It hasn't gone down. It's gone up. And so I think it's a sleight of hand that they're playing, and I think it's very unfair, property taxes. So lower property taxes, fund public education. You said two, but I'm going to throw in a third because there's plenty more. Term limits. You're not going to see a Republican or a Democrat fight for term limits, but you'll see an independent fight for term limits and ending gerrymandering and campaign finance reform and the other things we need to do to save politics.
Mike, good luck to you. It's great to talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Jason.